Okay, so first part here, we're going to look at review slope, and then overall on this kind of unit, or this lesson, we're going to try to compare parallel and perpendicular lines. So we're seeing, okay, are those two lines parallel, meaning run the same distance from each other, okay? Are they perpendicular, or are they neither, all right? So slope is the rate of change for a linear equation. So you want to think, if you remember, rise over run, okay? Slopes can be positive, negative, zero, or undefined. The way I remember that is if it is 0 over any number. So I'm going to use k for my variable, all right? So that's OK, and it equals 0. If it's undefined, it's a number, so I'll use n for my variable, over 0, and that is no, so undefined. That's just kind of how I remember it, a little trick. So like 0 on top of the fraction is okay, and it equals 0. 0 on bottom, not okay, and it's undefined, so we can't tell that number, right? If you're given a graph, just simply count the rise or the y change and the run, the x change, and write it as a fraction, okay? So it's simpler on a graph. Always have to write slope in simplest form. It's like if you're giving it as a fraction, simplest form. You can do a decimal if it doesn't give you a repeating, okay? All right, now the formula. So hopefully you have a little memory of this. It is m is what we use to represent slope, so the variable m. Okay. And does anyone remember which one goes on top, x or y? If it's rise tells you up and down. Which one's up and down? Okay, so which one's up and down though? Y, good. So I'm going to do y2 minus y1. Technically, you can write that in parentheses. Over x2 minus x1. If you just want to kind of set that you always pick x1 and y1 from the first coordinate, x2 and y2 from the second coordinate, okay? That's kind of a, doesn't have to be that way, but you do have to keep, so let me show you this real quick. Like, I have to keep, this is from one coordinate, and this is from one coordinate. I cannot swap those. That's the main mistake I see, okay? All right, so we're just going to find the slope of each line by using the slope formula. So it gives me A and B. So those are 2 points, so it would be a segment, okay? We're trying to find between those 2 points, what's that rate of change or what's that slope. So I'm just going to make this, if it helps you to label that, then do it. So I'm going to make -2 would be x or y. X. So I'm going to make that x1, y1. x2, y2. Okay, you don't have to label it, but if I see you making mistakes on it, I will make you label it, okay? So make sure. Okay, then we just plug that in. So m for slope equals. So, like I said, I can put, technically I want to put y2 first. So, Derek, what number is y2? I think that's actually a 1, but it does kind of look like 7. So it's -1. Is there any others that, yeah, that's a 1. Okay, so -1. Then I minus, okay, Nolan, what's y1? 5. So I'm just plugging into my formula here. Okay, Corbin, what is x2? 6 minus, Jake, what is x1? What?
2.
Careful. Look again.
-2.
-2. Okay, please watch close here. I see this happen a lot. So if I just do 6 minus 2, anyone know what I did wrong? Why is that going to be wrong? Corbin?
2 negatives.
Do you agree, Corbin? I have 2 negatives. So you want to put parentheses -2. I usually just try to think, okay, double negative, change it to positive. But if you want to write it like that, that's fine. Okay, simplify this, please, before you try to type it in your calculator, because it is easy to make a calculator typo there. All right? Otherwise, you have to do like a lot of parentheses. It gets a little complicated. So only do the top if you want to type it in your calculator. If you want to do it in your head, then go for it. But so -1 minus 5. Brendan, what's -1 minus 5? Good. Okay, David, simplify the bottom.
4.
Ooh, no.
Oh, okay. I fully simplified.
So that changes right to +8. Okay, this answer would not be fully correct. Nolan, why wouldn't that be fully right? Not simplest form. So you have 2 options. Simplify it. What can I divide by, McKenna? 2, which would give us what? Okay, make sure you keep that negative because only one of them's negative. If it were double, it would become positive. Or, what's my other option?
Shoot, I don't know the other option.
Okay.
I did -3 over 4.
Okay, that works then. Could we do it, is there an equivalent decimal?
0.75.
Yes, as long as they're both negative. Okay, so either one will work. -6 over 8 will not. Not for full credit. Okay, so I want you guys to try, let's just try the next one for now. Okay, so take like a minute there, maybe 2, try that. Okay, so you should have actually done 7 minus -3 and then -6 minus -11. So both of those are going to change to what? If it's a double negative, we change that to what? Positive, so it's going to be addition. So 7 plus 3 is 10. -6 plus 11 is 5. And then 10 divided by 5 gives you 2. Okay. This one here, so I'll just do these ones real quick and you can check and see if you got them. So I'm going to do 2 minus -4 because those are both my y's. I do want to show you something real quick. So look up here, or actually it doesn't work on this one, so hold that thought. And then I'll do 9 minus 9. So the top changes to plus. So what number should you get on the top, Kyle? 6. Alexis, what about the bottom? 0. All right. So if you want to look up here, if you guys did not write this, you might want to take a second and write that. So which one is this going to be? Is this 0 or undefined? Undefined because 0 is on bottom. I do see that mistake quite a bit, so make sure you're familiar with which one gives you which. Okay, and then the last one, -3 minus -3 over. All right, which number, if I picked this -3 first, which has to go on bottom first? What x goes with that -3? 0, yes. So 0, what's wrong with this? 0 minus 7.
You got -6.
Right, so that's going to make this +7. That is the most common mistake I see, so you've got to really be careful with those, canceling those negatives. All right, so that top becomes -3 plus 3, which is what? 0. And then the bottom is 0 plus 7, so 7. So if 0 is on top, so if you want to look back at your little key here, is that 0 or undefined? 0. So if we look at the graph, they give you 2 points. If they don't give them to you, you just want to pick 2 that are nice on a nice even, like that's not on an even grid point, so I wouldn't want to use that. They pick these ones that are. All right, you have, pause for a second before you start. You have to go left to right. okay? If you go right to left, might throw you off a little bit. So let's focus on that. So if I like to draw the triangle, the slope triangle. You guys remember that? So if I start at A, I go up. That puts me in line with B, right? How many was that? So count the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that tells me, when I count that, that tells me how far apart those are, okay? But is that the Y or the X since I went up?
Y.
The Y. So that goes on top of my fraction, right? So I'm going to put 4 over, was it?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that simplest form? Yes. If I wanted it as a decimal, anyone know what that is? You got 4 out of 5. What percent did you get? 80, so it's 0.8. Good job. All right, a vertical line. Undefined, good. All right, now this one, before we even do this one, can someone tell me what's going to be different about this slope compared to the first one? It's going to be negative. I like to write that at the beginning so I don't forget it. Okay? All right, so then count that. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is the 6 going to be on top or bottom, though? Bottom, because it was your X, right? It was the side to side. Was it positive or negative? Positive, because I went right. Okay, so that's 6. And then I got to go down 3. So like I said, I write that negative at the beginning, but let me show you another way to think of it. Because I could have a double negative, right, which would end up being a positive. So I think, okay, well, if I go down, that's negative. If I go right, that's positive. Okay, so it doesn't matter if my negative, like if it were switched and my negative were on bottom, that's okay as long as there's still just one. So not simplest form though, right? So Caden, what's simplest form of negative 3 over 6? Negative what? 1/2. Or 0.5, either way. Okay. Okay, this one you're looking at the ones with the points on it. So if something's flat, what's its slope or its rate of change? Nothing, which is also known as 0. So that's what I think of. If it's flat, there's no curve, there's no hill. It's a rate of flat. Steepness is 0. Okay, this would also be very familiar. Slope-intercept form. And remember that? Y equals?
MX plus B.
Perfect. Okay, M represents, what did we say? Slope. So that's why that's important from that formula. If we say M equals, then I know I'm going to replace that M with a number. Does anyone remember what B equals? It's your starting point on the graph. The y-intercept. Good. Some people say M for how you move on the graph. Remember, like once you have a point, that's how you move. And B for begin. That's where you start and how you move. Okay, so if an equation is written in slope-intercept form, the slope is the number that was plugged in for which variable? The one that's in front of X? Okay, so that's really easy. If they ask you for the slope and it's already in y equals mx plus b, you just tell that number attached to x. Okay, so those are really simple when it's like that. If it's in standard form, a little bit tougher, you got to rewrite it. Okay, so ax plus, oops, it's not a plus sign, by equals c. Okay, so on those, if you get one that looks like that, so A, B, and C will all be a number, okay? But you're going to have to solve for y here. What's if I say solve for y? What are you doing with it? how do you want it to look? By itself, exactly. So I would want to get y by itself. So I'm putting it in slope-intercept form, then I'm just seeing what the slope is, okay? We might need a refresh on that, so we'll look at that in a second. Okay, vertical line on the coordinate plane. So we looked at these on the previous page. So I'm looking at this one here. This gets tricky for people on writing the equation of this. So if you look at the line, okay, I have to think, what is that? What's staying the same about that line? The x value or the y value? So like this point has an x value of what? Move from the center. -1, okay, but its y value is +1, right? Okay, what about if I pick this point? Does it still have x of -1? Yeah, but its y value is 3, right? So the y value will change on a vertical line. The x value will not, okay? So the way you write that is x equals, and then whatever that x-intercept is, so whatever this number where they're all at. So they're all at what x value? Close. -1. So I just think like, okay, and that's how I visual check it too in my head. Like if I see one, like, okay, they're all going to have the same x value. Their y is changing forever, okay? So then if it's horizontal, we want to think, okay, this time what's staying the same? Their y value. What y value is that? 3. So I would say y equals 3. So it's kind of opposite of the way it's going, like it's parallel to the x, so you answer it with y equals. Okay, so rewrite in slope-intercept form. If needed, then find the slopes of each line. So this one, is it in slope-intercept form right now? No, because y is not by itself. So solve for y. You do this just like you're solving an equation. Okay, I want y on the left. So let's start with 2x. How can I move 2x to the other side? No. Subtract it. We're not taking 2 from the x. We're just moving the whole term, okay? And see how it's being added to 8y? So I will minus it. Cancels. Now, can I combine 56 and 2x? Are they like terms? No. So I don't want to actually subtract those. I always put the x in front because that's more of slope-intercept form, okay? Is that 56 positive?
Yeah.
So I want to put plus 56. Now what will I do with the 8? This means 8 times y. So I have to do what? How do I move the 8 to the other side? Divide. So that side cancels, right? 8 divided by 8 is just 1y, so I can leave that. Do I divide just -2, just 56, or both? Both. Okay, so I'm going to write divide by 8 under both of them. Why don't you just type that in your calculator if you feel most comfortable with that. Like for this one, I'm going to write, if you want to do it as a fraction, you can do that in your head, that's fine. So -2 divided by 8. -0.25x. If you did it as a fraction, it's -1/4 x. And then what's 56 divided by 8? 7. So I will put plus 7. Do we see why that first number is negative and the second is positive? Because how many negative signs were on that first, the -2 and 8? 1. So nothing to cancel it out. All right, now the slope is really easy. M is slope, right? Which number in that equation is our slope? The 1/4 or the 7?
1/4.
The -1/4 or the -0.25, okay? Either one of those. I do not care if you do fraction or decimal as long as it is not a repeating decimal. Then I want it as a fraction. All right, what questions do we have on that kind of startup, how we do that? All right. Then I want you to try 2. Try 2 and 3, and then I'll go over them. So you should do what first? Corbin, what's your first step? How do you move it? Please show me your work on these, because that's how you'll get your full credit, okay? So if I minus 2x, I saw a little bit where we left off that negative because we just wanted to flip it over. Remember, if you move across the equals, that changes your sign there. 15 was positive. And then what do I divide by, Jake? Huh? 3. Just the 3. The y stays. We want it by itself. So I divide the negative 2 and the 15. Negative 2 divided by 3, though, gives you 0.6 repeating, okay? If that happens, just leave it as a simplified fraction. Is negative 2 over 3 simplified? Yeah, it is. So I can just say, I'll just leave it like this. But this one will work. What's 15 divided by 3? 5. So I just put plus 5. Okay? Lydia, which of those is my m, or my slope?
Negative 2.
Good. The reason I don't want you to do that like decimal, and honestly all of them you kind of, if you can leave them a fraction, try to, because it's going to help you here in a little bit, okay? So 3, I should do what first? Move the x. And that's just like a 1x, right? So if you want to put 1, go ahead. So now I have 4y equals, what's wrong with this? What's the problem there? X isn't negative. If I subtract it, I got to keep that negative sign on it. Okay? Then divide by 4. So let's go ahead and keep this fraction here, okay? Because is it already simplified? 1/4? Yeah. Brendan, what's 24 over 4 going to give you, though? Good. So, Peyton, my slope is what?
Negative 1/4 x.
Just no x, just the number, okay? So, just to remind you, 1/4, negative 1/4, that means like my top number is my y, so I'm going to go down 1, right 4, or I can flip that to up 1, left 4. Okay, these have no work on these bottom ones because they are quick. On this one, actually let's just take 1 minute and you guys do 4 through 6. You can look up at your notes if you need. All right, you already have your slope by itself on 4. So Matt, what's the slope on 4? 2 over 3. Perfect. Okay, 5 and 6. The slope is not 2. Okay? What kind of line is a y equals? Vertical or horizontal? Horizontal. See how this is y equals? So if it's horizontal, that makes this flat line. So what kind of slope is that? 0. Okay? So m, or slope, equals 0. Now if it's the opposite, x equals is a vertical line. So vertical line is what kind of slope? Undefined. You're going to see these quite a bit. So please do not just say y equals 2, slope is 2. Y equals is 0. X equals is undefined. Okay, flip. Okay, everything to here should have been review. Now might be a little bit new. I do think you have done it a little, but I just don't know how much you got to last year with it, to be honest. All right, so 2 parallel lines on a coordinate plane will have the same slopes, but different y-intercepts. Okay? So, for example, if we have an equation here that says I want to write an equation of a line that is parallel to y equals 1/4 x minus 8. So I could say, well, y equals, right? Which of those do I need to be the same? The 1/4 or the -8? They have the same slope but different y-intercepts. So Lydia, which number is the slope? 1/4. So that's what I want to be the same, the slope. The y-intercept can be anything, really. Okay, so pick a different number. Alexis, pick another number for our y-intercept. What? Yep, anything. 3. That works. Except I had 3. Okay, so as long as the slopes are the same, okay? So 1/4 here, 1/4 there. That means they're parallel, okay? Because they're going to be following the same distance from each other as they go up the graph, all right? Now, perpendicular lines are going to have what's called, well, opposite you're aware of. So if I say -1, what's the opposite? +1. Now this word, reciprocal, anyone remember what that means? If you take a fraction and you do what to it? Flip it, okay? So I'll give you a hard one first. The reciprocal of -3. Any whole number, how do you make it a fraction? Over 1. So what's the reciprocal, or sorry, I'm going to add this. What's the opposite reciprocal of -3? So first of all, the sign has to be different, right? So it's going to be positive. And then if I flip it, what's that going to be? 1 on top, 3 on bottom. Okay, you guys do the 2/5 one. What's the opposite reciprocal of 2/5? Different sign, flip the fraction. Okay, Derek, is my answer going to be negative or positive? Negative. And Jake, if I flip 2/5, what do I get? Yep. You can put that as 2.5, but honestly, it's easier to do on a graph if you keep it improper. Okay, it's easier to like go up 5 and left 2 or whatever. Okay, so what is the slope of a line that is perpendicular to 1/4 x? So I need the slope. 1/4 is my slope. So the new slope of the perpendicular line, anyone know it? What would it be? Perfect, Caden. Because it would be 4/1 technically, right? Which is the same as 4. Okay, and just a little side note here. If the slope of two lines are not the same, but they're also not opposite reciprocals, the lines are neither parallel nor perpendicular. So they'll intersect, but they will not be at a 90-degree angle. Because remember, perpendicular lines, I didn't remind you of that, but remember, they form those 90-degree angles, okay? So that's why it's going to be important for us, what we're looking at. Okay, so y equals -4 and x equals -2. So if I said y equals, remember, is that flat line or vertical line? Horizontal or vertical line? Horizontal, so it has a slope of 0. This was supposed to be line 1. Okay, and x equals line has a slope of what? Undefined. So those don't really have numbers on that, right? So you just got to kind of think visually here. If it's a 0 slope and an undefined slope, are those parallel or perpendicular? Perpendicular. Okay, so those are the only ones that aren't going to have like a number flip going on, okay? Okay, now these, x equals 4. Is that undefined or 0? X equals undefined. The other one is also x equals, right? So that is undefined too. If they're both undefined, we have two, what kind of lines? Horizontal or vertical? Vertical. Two vertical lines. Parallel. So for me, those ones are easier if I just kind of envision which way those lines are going, rather than think about the numbers. All right. So the most common mistake I see here is we say that the slope is 3. Why is the slope not 3 here? Why can I not do that? What is it, Jake?
X in front of the y.
Okay, so I have to have that in what form before I can tell the slope? Slope intercept. So get y by itself instead of in front of it, like you said, right? Good. So saying that's in front of it, that doesn't work. So we have to rewrite the first one, okay? Alexis, how do I start rewriting that equation? What would I move first? So minus 3x. Now I have negative 4y equals, put the x first, negative 3x plus 8. Okay, Dorian, what's the next step? If I have negative 4y, how do I move the negative 4? That's times right now, so opposite of times is? Yep, divide it. What if I only do this? What's the problem there? Corbin, what am I doing wrong if I only do that? We'll get to that, but what else do I have to divide by negative 4? What? Yes, the 8. Okay, so Caden, you said double negative there, right?
Yeah.
What's that make my answer? Positive 3/4 x. And then 8 divided by negative 4 will give us? Just 2? Negative 2, good. Now we're ready for the slope. So David, what's the slope of that line? Y equals 3/4 x minus 2.
Negative 0.75.
Okay, leave it as a fraction, okay? 3/4. Because that's simplest form, right? 3/4, can't divide that by anything. Okay, you have to do that first. Do not try to skip that step. Why do I not have to rewrite the second one? It's already done. So what is the slope then? Negative 4/3. And here's where you got to think a little bit. Are those the same? Obviously not, right? Are they opposite reciprocals? Yes, they're different signs, and I flipped one. So what does that make them?
Perpendicular.
Perpendicular, good. So does that make sense how you kind of recognize those? Okay, I want you to try 4 on your own. I'll give you like 2 minutes. Okay, so start with doing what with 2x? How? It's like a plus because it's a positive. You only divide if I'm getting that 2 off of the x because that's the multiply part. This is being kind of combined with that 2y, so I minus 2x. So I have negative 3y left. Make sure you guys keep that negative with the 3y. We did drop that on a couple. So then I have negative 2x on this side plus 15 because 15 was positive. Okay, then now what do we do, McKenna? Now you divide. So see how I'm separating that number off of the variable? That's when you divide. A little pause here. All right, so since those were double negatives, what kind of answer does that give us? Positive. So I can just basically cancel those off. So 2/3 x, remember keep it as a fraction. And then what's 15 divided by negative 3? What's that give you? Jake, what's that give you? Different signs, negative 5. There we go. So really the important part here, though, was the slope. The slope was 2/3. Alexis, what was the slope of the second line? It's already done for you. 2/3. So are those the same?
Yes.
So our answer would be they are what? Parallel. So remember, same as parallel, opposite reciprocals are perpendicular. If it's neither of those, then it's neither. Okay, so same thing here, but they don't give us an equation, right? They give us points. So how can I find the slope of AB if I'm given 2 points? What do I use? Yeah, so remember, if you want to label, then you can. All right, David, what would my top row say there? Y2.
4 minus 3.
Good.
And negative 1 minus 2.
Yes. Okay, so you guys see how David put, so just a note, these are both our x2, y2. Those have to go together. If I pick that first, I got to put the negative 1 first. Okay? All right, so let's subtract. So Nolan, what should I get? 4 minus 3 is. And then be careful, negative 1 minus 2. Good. So my slope of AB is negative 1/3. I can just put that negative kind of out in front. I could put it on top as long as it's just 1 there. Okay, it doesn't apply to the top and the bottom. Okay, now CD. So these are like line segments since they're just 2 points. All right, so Alexis, what would I put on top? What numbers am I going to do first?
6 and 9.
So 6 minus 3. All right, Matt, if Alexis picked 6 first, what x do you have to pick first?
4.
Good. What kind of 4?
Negative 4.
-4. Okay. The tricky part, Brendan, what do I got to write after the negative 4? Careful. If I picked negative 4 for my x. Well, Matt did. What do I need to write next? Minus what? Nope. What's my other x?
Plus 5.
+5. David, why did you change that to plus?
Just 2 negatives.
Yeah, because it would have been minus negative 5, okay? All right, Peyton, what's that give me? 6 minus 3 is? 3. And what's negative 4 plus 5? 1. If it helps you to leave that, I'm going to say 3 parentheses or 3 over 1. Just because 3 over 1 might be easier for you guys to recognize what's happening here. So those are not the same, right? Are they opposite reciprocals? Yes. So they are what then? Perpendicular. Good. I think we have like 2 more and we're done. Long one, sorry. First day is always long. Okay, let's try, you guys try A, B, and C, D. Okay, so, and then I'll kind of put the answer on the board. I'll give you a minute here to try it. And you get 1/4. Those are not the same, right? Are they opposite reciprocals? No, the opposite reciprocal of 2/3 would be 3 over 2. It's not, right? So then what would our answer be? Neither. Okay? So that's going to happen where you're going to get it's not the same or opposite reciprocal. Don't assume that it has to be one of them. Okay? I think in most like your homework and your tests and stuff, I give you one that's a neither too to make sure you're good. All right, so most of you have checked. If I haven't, go ahead and do 7, let me know, and then do 8. I will check both of them for you, but we kind of do those independently, okay? Okay, to review the second one here, so I'm going to do x1, y1, x2, y2. Then plug in. So y2 is 5 minus y1 is 1. Remember, I picked 5 first, so I've got to put negative 4 first. And then it's minus negative 4, which changes to plus. So 5 minus 1 is 4. Negative 4 plus 4 is what? 0. Can't stop there. So 0's on bottom, so it is undefined again. Okay, if they're both undefined, I know that's kind of hard to think of because it's like, well, that's not a number. How do I know if those are the same? But that means it's 2 vertical lines, right? So if they're both vertical, think like lines on the road, kind of. They are what? Parallel. Good. And if they were both 0, they would still be parallel. It's just it's going to go horizontally that way.